Thank you, Ford.
Change the following. Yeah. Okay, it's time to come to order. Kieran, iPad away. There's absolutely no need for that iPad. None. This is big time stuff. We're getting ready to start our unit on trigonometry. Here we go. There are, if I said to you, let's measure the width of this room. Some of you would come back with an answer and say, oh, Mrs. Ford, it's this many feet. Some of you would say it's this many meters. Some of you would say it's this many inches or yards. There are lots of ways to measure length. Would you agree with that? Lots of units you could use. Well, maybe you weren't aware that there are ways to measure angles besides degrees. Most of the time when we talk about an angle, like 45 degrees, we use degrees as our unit. But there is a very important unit of measurement for angle measure that all upper mathematicians use. So, like in calculus and beyond, everybody measures the angles in what we call radians. So our first goal today is to change degrees into radians in the same way that in chemistry class you learned how to change inches into centimeters. Right? Just unit conversion. That's all it is. And it's very, very simple. Here's how it works. This is the one thing you have to remember. You have to remember that there are pi radians in 180 degrees. You need to remember that equivalence. So when someone says to you, okay, change 100 degrees, I'm now on my note sheets, I'm looking at problem A. When somebody says, okay, how many radians is 100 degrees? I know that pi radians is 180, but how many would just 100 be? It's a simple proportion. Say pi is to 180 as something is to 100. Now we're going to solve that. But let's make sure you understand that proportion. It's very, very simple. We know, starting now, because I told you, that pi is the same as 180. Pi radians is 180 degrees. So these two match. I want to figure out what will match 100. Does that make sense to you? I know pi is 180. So what is 100? Do you understand why I put the 100 in the bottom? Why I didn't say 100 over x? Does that make sense to you? This is the degrees. So when I say pi radians is 180 degrees, then I have to put the degrees in the same part of the fraction in the bottom. So now I'll cross multiply. 180x equals 100 pi. You cross multiply a million times in your life. That's all there is to this. And then I'll just divide by 180. So x equals 100 pi over 180. Now I need to reduce that. So I can cancel the zeros, and then I'm down to 10 over 18, and 10 over 18 would reduce to what? 5 pi over 9. So the answer to the first question is 5 pi over 9. Now I'm going to do negative 60 degrees. I'm going to do the next one. I'm going to do it exactly the same way. So I'm going to set up a proportion. What's that proportion going to look like? Perfect. I don't know who's talking, but you are perfect. Pi over 180 equals x over negative 60. Amazing. So now we cross multiply. 180x equals negative 60 pi. And then we'll divide. So x equals negative 60 pi over 180, and then we'll reduce. The zeros cross out again. 6 over 18 reduces to negative pi over 3, negative 1 pi over 3. Can you try 210 on your own? Try 210 and compare it with your neighbor. What's the proportion you're setting out, Katie Baumgartner? It's the equation you're setting out here for this one. Katie? What do we start with always? So what am I going to write down?
Are you going to do pi over 210?
No.
180.
Do pi over 180. It's always pi over 180 because that's the equality.
Okay.
And then what's that going to equal?
X over 210?
Yep. Don't forget to reduce. Did you get 7 pi over 6? Did you get 7 pi over 6, peeps?
Yep.
Now, look at the next set of directions. What's going on there? It's the other way, right? It says now you got a radian measure, change it into degrees. Now we can do it the same way, and sometimes we have to, but there's actually a much easier way to do most of these problems. Take a look at this. Think about this for a minute. Pi radians is 180 degrees. That's a fact. So when somebody says to me, I'm looking at problem A, 2A, pi over 4, isn't that just a fourth of pi? But I already know pi is 180. So isn't this the same as a fourth of 180? That's it. So all we have to do is take 180 divided by 4. And that's the answer. Because pi radians is 180 degrees. So we'll just plug 180 in and say, okay, I want a fourth of 180. Use your calculators if you need to. That should be 45 degrees. It's a fourth of pi. Pi is 180. So a fourth of 180.
So do we have to put a degree sign or do we just count off?
Well, I'm not gonna, I forget it half the time myself, Maya. It's good practice to put it, so try to remember to put it. 2 pi over 3. Okay, now wait a minute. Forget this for a minute. What's pi? 180. Okay, everybody with me? What's 180 divided by 3? 60 times 2. 120. This is 120 degrees. Now I know some of you aren't real good at mental math, and that's okay. You can type it in on your calculator. But what I want you to get is how easy this is. Pi is 180 degrees, period. Pi radians are 180 degrees. You got to know that. So when somebody says, okay, I got pi over 3, that would be 180 divided by 3, which is 60. But there's 2 of those, so that would be 120. Negative pi over 6. What do you think about that one? What do you think that is? Negative 30. If you said negative 30, you are exactly right. Because what's pi? 180 divided by 6 is 30. Negative 30. 7 pi over 6. Somebody's on this. 210 degrees is exactly right. Let's talk about why. What's pi? Divided by 6. 30 times 7, 210. And again, if you can't do that in your head, then type it in real quick on your calculator. Uh-oh, uh-oh, uh-oh.
Look, it's just 2.
It's just 2. This is a hard one. What's not there? There's no pi. If there's no pi, boys and girls, you have to go back to your proportion. If there's no pi, we gotta do it the long way.
So we gotta do something to it? We don't just do this too?
We're gonna change it into degrees, and we're gonna do that by setting up our proportions. So here we go. Pi is 1/80. Now, any guesses what that fraction's gonna be? Now remember, that's 2 radians. It's gonna be 2 over x. Perfect, perfect, perfect. You are making my day. Pi radians is 180 degrees. 2 radians is how many degrees? So pi x equals 360, and x equals 360 divided by pi degrees. That's the answer. Anybody who misses F is in trouble. What's F? 180 degrees, yeah, that one we have memorized. Pi radians is 180 degrees. Got it? That's pretty easy. Use your calculator to convert the following into degrees, minutes, and seconds. Okay, now we need to talk about this for a second, because you may not know what degrees, minutes, and seconds are. A long time ago, some guys took a circle and divided it up. I can't do this, but they divided it up into 360 parts. 360 parts. And each one of those little parts was a degree, right? 360 degrees in a circle. But then they said, when I'm looking at the world, the Earth, for instance, degrees are pretty big. So I need to narrow it down a little bit. So they started taking these degrees and breaking them up into smaller pieces, subdividing them even more. Sort of like you take a foot and break it down into 12 inches. They took a degree and broke it down into 60 minutes, what they call minutes. And then they took a minute and split it up into 60 seconds. Now, I don't think that's going to be hard for you to remember because it's just like the hours on the clock. An hour is broken up into 60 minutes, and each minute is broken up into 60 seconds. So angles can be written like, let's say 32 degrees, 12 minutes, and 11 seconds. That's the notation we use. Now, I'm telling you, you might say to me, Mrs. Ford, why do we have that? If you were stranded in the middle of the ocean on a desert island, wouldn't you want the guys coming to find you to have the most precise angle possible for latitude and longitude so they knew how to find you? These are very precise. These are very precise angles. 32 degrees, 12 minutes, 11 seconds. Now, how do I do this on my calculator? Well, hopefully you brought a calculator today. If you didn't, please lean over to your neighbor who hopefully was responsible. Thank you, responsible people. We need a calculator every day, folks. All right, I want everybody that has a calculator, we're doing 3A. I want you to type in 100.4. Just type in that number. Okay, that's problem A, it's 100.4. Okay? Now, on my calculator, and I think it's the same on yours, I have an apps button. Right next to my math button, I have an apps button. And right above the apps button is written angle. Do you see it?
Yeah.
So I want you to press second angle. Now, when you do that, it brings up a whole list of stuff. I want you to look down at number 4. It says DMS. Any idea what DMS stands for? Degrees, minutes, seconds. Hit enter and enter again, and it will tell you that 100.4 is the same as 100
Teachers and
degrees.
students, please pardon this interruption at this time. Could I please have all members of the speech team report to the chapel? Again, just the members of the speech team, please report to the chapel at this time. Thank
Is
you.
that any of you? Okay, so it says 100 degrees, 24 minutes, 0 seconds. Everybody get that? All right, let's try the next one. 18.375. Just type in the number. And then what do? Second angle, and click down to DMS. What'd you get for that one? 18.375 was what? 18 degrees, 22 minutes, 30 seconds.
So, Ms. Ford, will the number before the decimal always be your degree?
Yep, because this says 18 whole degrees, and then a fraction of part of the degree. All right, let's do the last one. Negative 20.42. Second angle, DMS. What'd you come up with for the last one? Negative 20 degrees, 25 minutes, 12 seconds. Page 1, done. Uh-oh. Now we're going to do the opposite. Now we're going to start with degrees, minutes, and seconds and end up with just a decimal. Okay? Equally easy. Start. Everybody on 4A? Start by typing in just 132. Just type 132. Everybody typed in 132? All right, now go back into your angle menu, so second angle, and you see the very first option is the degree mark. Hit enter. So now your calculator should be showing 132 degrees, literally a degree mark. Now, type in 11. Go back into your angle menu, and what do you see right under the degree mark? The minute mark. So click down and press enter, and now the calculator says 132 degrees 11 minutes, right? Press enter, and it gives you the decimal. So the decimal doesn't say how to round it, so let's round it off. Let's say 132.183 degrees. All right, let's try the next one. Oh, shooty shoot. We'll pick up here tomorrow. Those of you who didn't bring a calculator today, please bring one tomorrow, okay? Please, please, please.
Right.
Have a good day. The time is going on.
I need to go to the, what? You have what? Come with us. Susan and I, 'cause we have to go get a